Something that's been really cool lately with the Back 4 Blood community is I've been making videos on the best of this or the best of that. And while today we're going to focus on some of the worst cards and cards I'd have trouble recommending to people, what's been amazing is the conversations that you guys have been having. Lately, when I've been making these videos about the best this or the best that, it's largely based off of what I think about the game and my experience with it. So it's been cool to see the conversations that everybody's been having about the game and what they think, how they feel about it, what works for them. And that's really the point of these videos. That's the thing I'm trying to encourage the most is I have a talking point and I have to kind of stick to something to make it so I have something to talk about. But really all I'm trying to do is to get people more interested in engaging with parts of the game or engaging with mechanics of the game. Ultimately, you can agree or disagree with what I say, but as long as I'm seeing more people have conversations about stuff and really give their own personal thoughts about things, I think that's a big win, and I've been really happy to see that out of you guys. So thank you guys for doing that. It's been so cool to see. So with that spirit, let's go ahead and continue the conversation of things that I think I'd have trouble recommending to people to put in their decks because there's just a lot of problems with some of these cards. All right? So I have a list of, what is it, like 6 cards, 7 cards? I don't know. Cards that I would... Don't ever pick them, please. And we're going to start with Rousing Speech. Rousing Speech, what it does is it increases your revive speed by 225%. And it also reduces the amount of team in-cap trauma. Now, the big problem with Rousing Speech, though, and I would never recommend it to anyone, is right here. It disables offensive accessories. And that is a huge, huge minus to this card. For a couple of reasons. One, having diversification amongst your items is always useful for a team. That allows you to pick up multiple things and not leave things behind because you can only carry one item. If you have Molotovs, you can't carry grenades. If you have grenades, you can't carry flashbangs. So what happens is one item is going to get left in the dust. On top of that, another big problem with Rousing Speech is if you look just a page earlier, what you'll see is Smelling Salts. And Smelling Salts increases your revive speed by 200%. And there's no problem associated with it. It's just a flat 200%, no downside. Now, this wasn't always the case. This is a card that got buffed. It used to be much lower. I think it was like 100% or maybe even lower than that. So it got bumped up to 200%. So it made Rousing Speech look a little bit worse because Rousing Speech didn't get changed at all. And something I should mention is this is before the April 12th patch, the big Tunnels of Terror thing. So who knows if things are going to change. But this is, as of now, based off of the February patch that I'm making all of these conversation points. So Rousing Speech is a card that please don't put it in your deck. If you want revive speed, go ahead and put in Smelling Salts. But that being said, use speed also does increase your revive speed, but it also does a bunch of other good things. So you might even want to kind of orient yourself towards the use speed side of things. And then on the topic of, I think this one is the worst card in the game, the one I'm about to talk about. In fact, it's so bad that people usually don't even talk about it because they forget it's in the game. A lot of people like to go, oh, Mean Drunk, it's so bad. Nobody even talks about this next card because it's so terrible you never even consider it. It's this card right here, Reckless. Don't put this in your deck. It's a terrible card. I can't think of a scenario where you want to have this in your deck. What it does is it increases your sprinting efficiency by 40%, even though Olympic Sprint is sitting right here next to it for 30%. And when you take damage while sprinting, you lose all of your stamina. So it doesn't matter how much sprinting efficiency you got. If you only got 0, 40% ain't going to make you go any faster. So Reckless is the worst card in the game. I really can't think of a worse card. This card needs to be changed if anybody's ever going to look at it ever again. Another card on this list of one of the worst cards of the game here is Trigger Control. I can't remember what Trigger Control was beforehand, but they changed it after they reworked Walker. And they basically just took Walker's buff that he had and put it on a card. So what it does is a precision kill, aka something that you end the kill with a yellow hit marker, like a headshot on a common or a weak spot kill on a mutation. It gives you 20% extra accuracy for 5 seconds. Now, the buff here, I guess, isn't bad, but it's that it doesn't matter. 20% accuracy willy-nilly every once in a while, it just feels so inconsequential. It doesn't really affect what you're doing that much. This is more of an opportunity cost argument. And if you don't know what opportunity cost is, it is you have 2 choices. You have choice A and choice B. If you pick choice B, you don't get to get what you would have had in choice A. That's the opportunity cost. So if you pick Trigger Control, that means you can't pick something else. So you could pick any other card in the game that probably is going to do a lot more for you than what Trigger Control is providing. It just feels like a card that, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. And if you are going for accuracy anyway, you're probably getting it from a different card that is a little bit more permanent. And one other thing to mention about precision kills, I don't think all these precision kill cards are bad. Some of them are really good, especially this one. I really like In the Zone for the reload speed. But something to keep in mind with precision kills in this game is that they can kind of be a trap. Something I recommend all the time when people play this game is shoot low. Because if you shoot high, that opens you up to accidentally shooting a hazard in the background, be it birds or a car or a door or really just anything that's going to piss off a horde, maybe a snitch. So I always recommend you shoot low at the legs of things. People always ask me, what are you doing? Do you not know how to aim? I'm like, dude, I'm aiming at the leg because I don't want to hit hordes. And the precision cards are never going to benefit off of you shooting something in the leg. So something to keep in mind with that as well. The next card I have here is Meat Grinder. The reason why I have Meat Grinder on a list of cards that you're probably never going to pick is because you gain, what, 30% move speed and 30% accuracy while crouched while using an LMG. I really like the accuracy part of it. The move speed is, it doesn't matter. Let me show you why it doesn't matter. So if you go to statty.net here, and we go ahead and take a look at move speed on these weapons here. What you'll see down here is they all have a number of values, and you can associate these with whatever you want. But if you go ahead and take a look at move speed other, this is how fast you're going when you are crouched. And if you take a look at the M249 and the RPK, they have numbers of about 111, 117. Now, if you go and take a look at all of these other guns, all of them, they have values that are much higher than those. And even if you go ahead and make this 30% better, here, I'll take a calculator real quick. So if I go ahead and take out my calculator here, and I go, what was 117? That was the higher one, times 1.3. You get 152. So you have a whole card dedicated to going faster, and you're still slower than the slowest AR in the game. It's another one of those things where, yeah, I guess it's a little bit nicer and a little bit faster, but it's still really bad. So it's not a card that you should really pick because it's not doing a whole lot for you. Now, I could see an argument for accuracy. Let's say you want to have a 100% accuracy build. The way I would probably go about doing that with an LMG is I would go hunker down right here to get a 40% accuracy while crouching, and then Meat Grinder, and then suddenly you're at 70% off of 2 cards. So that could be kind of cool. And then if you want to go a little bit more on the accuracy, you could pick, I don't know, Optics Enthusiast, and then you're at 100% accuracy on your LMG while crouching. And LMGs benefit a lot from really high accuracy. So I can kind of see that, but I just have a hard time really hopping on the Meat Grinder train because it's so niche and focused in on just LMGs, and LMGs are kind of weak in general anyway. I had a lot of fun with the RPK and the M249 when I first started playing the game, and then they kind of fell off of my radar as I started to become more used to other guns or more experienced with other guns in the game. It's my 2 cents. Again, this is all my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I love the conversations that you guys have, and honestly, I tend to learn a lot from you guys too, just based off of how you guys look at things. So I'm curious to see what y'all say about Meat Grinder here. And now this next card here, I know it's going to get people to talk a little bit. I think people really like this card, but I don't. And the card here is Hazard Pay. I think Hazard Pay is not a good pick. Reason being is that just about anything else in the game is better in terms of copper cards. There's one card that's worse, but most of them are better than Hazard Pay. So what Hazard Pay does is it gives you 250 bonus copper at the start of each level. Now, I do like that it starts at the beginning of the level, so you get 250 straight out the gate. That is awesome about this card. The problem with it, though, is that Share the Wealth gives you 400. Now, something I always hear when I kind of dunk on Hazard Pay is that, well, it's good for solo queue when people don't work with each other. That's fair. I understand that. That's true. I'm still going to encourage you to try to get your team rocking the Share the Wealth thing, because more lobbies than not, I can get at least one other person who's working with me, but usually more than that, to move copper around. But if you for some reason can never get anybody to work with anybody, then maybe Hazard Pay is your pick. But even further down this train here, Copper Scab is going to produce more copper than 250. Share the Wealth produces more copper than 250. I don't know about Compound Interest. Compound Interest is really only nice if things are going well. But Money Grubbers is going to produce more than 250. Bounty Hunter is going to produce more than 250. All of the scavenger cards are going to produce more than 250. One freaking, or what, 2 Razor Wire is going to produce more than 250. Like, so many of these economy cards are going to do more for you than that 250. The only nice thing that Hazard Pay really has going for it is that you get it at the beginning of the very first level of the game. That's the cool part about Hazard Pay. But again, from an opportunity cost standpoint, I think you're further ahead to pick a different copper card, or just a completely different card in general. And then for the final card on this list, before we move into the runner-ups, is Lucky Pennies. This is a terrible card. Please don't put it in your deck. So what it does is when you or your team loots copper, you have a 35% chance to find 35% additional copper. This is just not good for so many reasons. One is that that's just not really good odds. I guess it's a 1 in 3 chance, but let's talk about why that doesn't really add up to being anything special. I think when people think of Lucky Pennies, they think of that idealistic scenario where you find a 100 sized copper pile on the ground, right? And you pick that up and suddenly it's 35% more. So you get 135 copper, whatever the heck it would be. But what really happens, and when you know a little bit more about how the copper piles spawn in this game and what's likely to happen, is the way copper piles are distributed is there's 3 sizes. There's 25s, there's 50s, and there's 100s. The way the game works is the copper piles you're going to see most often are the 25s. And then it's going to be the 50s. And then it's going to be the 100s. The ratio scaled downward. I don't have the exact numbers, but I could probably pull them up somewhere. But you have the least amount of chance of seeing a 100 copper pile. On top of the fact that you only have a third of a chance, if you do find that 100 copper pile, to get Lucky Pennies to work anyway. So let's go ahead and pull up a calculator, right? And what I've noticed in Nightmare is there's about 13 piles that spawn-ish, give or take 1. Then when you go into a tool room, you get about another 3 piles. So you tend to get about 16 piles in the game of Nightmare. If you have Copper Scav on, you might get up to like 19. That's what I typically have seen over rounds and rounds of doing this, is it's typically 13, 16, 19. So let's go ahead and try to come up with a hypothetical scenario here based off of the 13 copper piles and how we get more 25s and then less 50s and even less 100s. So let's go ahead and give it, let's say 7 copper piles of 25, right? So that's going to get you about 175 copper. Cool. And then you can go ahead and have 4 piles of 50s. So 4 times 50. That's going to get you 200, right? And then let's go ahead and give you an extra 2 piles, right, to reach that 13. So 2 times 100. That's about what it's going to look like most of the time. So overall, you're picking up about, what is that, 575 copper? So yeah, 575 copper. Okay. Now, if you go ahead and just take that number and make it a third larger. Let's say you had the insane luck where every single time you picked up a copper pile, you got 35% more copper. What's 35% more here? So times 1.35, what did you get? Okay, 776. So how much extra copper was that? Real easy to go ahead and do this and find out it was only 200 copper. You see why this is so bad? This is in the scenario where every single time you pick up a copper pile, you got a third more. And even in that scenario, it still blows. Now, who knows? Recruit, you do get more copper piles. And we didn't factor in the extra 3 piles you get from the toolkit room, or the extra 3 if you're doing Copper Scav. But even then, it's still going to suck. If you go ahead and you take this number and turn that into a third of what it would actually be, you're only really getting like 70 copper, right? I don't know, maybe I messed up my math somewhere in there, but it's a terrible card. Please never put this in your deck. It's bad. It's so bad. It's the worst card. Like we were just dunking on Hazard Pay for giving you 250 copper. Lucky Pennies, in its most ideal scenario that doesn't actually exist, doesn't even get you 250. It hardly gets you 200. So screw Lucky Pennies. Okay, back onto the runner-ups here. So let's talk about some cards that I think people tend to think are really bad. And I want to talk about them because I kind of agree, but at the same time, I want to talk about maybe some things that are good about them. So one of the cards that gets talked about a lot is Miraculous Recovery. Whenever you use a medical accessory, it has a 25% chance to have a 100% increased effect. So kind of on the same vein of Lucky Pennies, right? You're sitting here playing the RNG gods. Something that I think makes this card climb up in value a little bit is the image that they posted for Charisse. Let me explain what I'm talking about with Charisse, because they posted something about Charisse on Twitter here, and it's about one of the new things she's bringing to the game, and it's called Bolstered Health. So if you don't know what Bolstered Health is, we got a little bit of an explanation here on Reddit. They went ahead and posted the details here, but mostly this explanation from one of the Turtle Rock devs here. So to kind of explain how Bolstered Health works, in my understanding, is it's just more temporary health. You can have more temporary health than you can right now. So the way the game works is if you have 100 HP right now and you lose 50 of it, and let's say you heal for a bandage that heals for 5 billion, you're still only going to go up to 100 health. Now let's say you use pills that heal for 5 billion, you're still only going to go up to 100 health. You're capped off at your max HP. Okay? So what bolstered health does is it pushes you beyond your max HP, but it's only going to be temporary health. Okay? So if you have, with bolstered health, a capacity of 150, you have a bandage that heals for 5 billion. You're still only going to go up to 100 because that's regular health. But if you have pills that heal for 5 billion, then you're going to go up to, let's say, 150 HP, whatever your bolstered health limit's going to be. Okay? So this is bringing this all back here, I think, where Miraculous Recovery might start to make a little bit more sense. Because if you have pills that typically heal for like 40, I think, at their base value, and they could heal for 80 now, well, they're going to make a lot more sense, because sometimes you use pills when you still have 60 HP. And instead of only going to 100, you might be able to go to like 140. Okay? So Miraculous Recovery might be a little bit more interesting in this next patch based off of the information we've gotten out of Twitter. Now let's move on to the next card here, Headband Magnifier. This grants you a lot of use speed, 125%. But when you take damage, you get blinded for a second. I don't think this is super terrible of a card because it's only when you take damage. And that 125% use speed is so useful, especially on the end of Act 1. If you have this in your deck for Act 1, I'd say it's a good call. It makes a little bit less sense in Act 2 because you don't need this much use speed for Brave Bird. And I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense in Act 3 unless I'm forgetting something. I mean, maybe for the T5 traits, but again, I don't think you need that much. So great pick for Act 1. A little less amazing for the other acts. Now, Mean Drunk. A lot of people think that Mean Drunk is the worst card in the game. The way I feel about Mean Drunk is you can make it make sense. You lose sprint, and that really sucks because there's times where you really want to sprint, but you can make it work in a way where you have a ton of attack power on your melee weapon, especially if you're carrying an axe. So a lot of people, what they do nowadays is they carry a combat knife for common because it does about 40 damage, which kills all the common in every scenario, and it's a low stamina requirement. And then they'll also hold a fire axe in order to just slam tall boys like into a doorway or something like that. Mean Drunk can have applications that are really strong. I agree. It's definitely not the most ideal card in the game, but I don't think it's the worst card. I think you can work with it. You guys let me know what you guys think. Now into Buckshot Bruiser here. Buckshot Bruiser is really good in theory, but in practice, it doesn't work that well most of the time. Its only really good scenarios are when you go up against like a breaker or a really chunky boss like maybe an ogre, or like a really chunky tall boy. Buckshot Bruiser, you just tend to kill stuff faster than Buckshot Bruiser can provide for you. I did find use for Buckshot Bruiser when I was using my Belgian build, the Brrr Elgin, that I have on the channel here, but other than that, I never really have a good time with this card. Some people swear by it. Typically, I can never really get it to do amazing things, again, other than the Belgian build. And I think that's because the Belgian has its own set of limitations that make Buckshot Bruiser a little bit more viable with it, and it just has more pellets in general. You guys let me know what you think. And then finally, we have Safe Room Recovery on here. And this is kind of more of a PSA than it is just dunking on what the card does. So what it does is it heals 15 health, 7 trauma, and 10% ammo at the start of each level for your team. Now, that sounds awesome. You'd be like, oh man, if 4 people pick this, that's a ton of HP, that's a ton of trauma, it's a ton of ammo. Why wouldn't you like this card? The problem with it is that it only works once per team. So if 2 people play it, 3 people play it, 4 people play it, it's only going to affect you once. So you're only ever going to get 7 trauma healed. You're only ever going to get 15 health healed, which means the other people on your team are wasting a card. So Safe Room Recovery sucks unless you're really coordinated and only one person has it in their deck. I think that might be a bug. I think they might fix it so it stacks. But as of right now, it's only one person can use it, which makes it not so good in my opinion. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about the cards that I picked here. Do you think these are bad choices? Do you think some of these are actually really good and I'm just missing out? What are some cards that you think are really bad that I didn't put in this list? If you want to talk more about stuff, I stream just about every single night on twitch.tv/swingpoint. Links in the description and also the top comment. And if you've enjoyed these videos and they've helped you at all, please consider subscribing down below. And if you're interested in supporting the channel just a little bit more, you can go ahead and click the join button down below to become a YouTube member. It directly supports the stream, directly supports the channel, and it makes it so I can keep doing what I do here as a full-time content creator. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys in the next video that we do around here.